everybody, this is me, Undead Viking. I want to talk to you about this game today. It is called the Manhattan Project Energy Empire. A long time ago now, it feels like, I did a review for the Manhattan Project, which is a worker placement game that was published by Minion Games, and it is... if I ever did, and don't hold me to this, but if I ever did a top 100 games or whatever type of list or video or whatever, Manhattan Project would be in my top 10. It's one of my absolute favorite worker placement games. It has never gotten stale. I don't know why more people don't know of its existence or why more people don't like it, but for me, it just kind of hits on every single cylinder of a really, really good worker placement game. So, when Minion Games contacted me and asked me if I'd be interested in taking a look at this, I jumped at the chance because this is kind of like the spiritual successor to the Manhattan Project. This game takes place after kind of the Cold War and what have you, and each nation that you'll be representing is kind of just moving forward into that kind of energy boom, if you will, and you'll be using different types of energy, coal, hydroelectric, nuclear, and oil, and plus even some fledgling green things like solar and wind and hydroelectric power. And you'll be trying to create basically this energy empire with your nation. And you'll be competing against everybody else in an attempt to doing the best job at that. Now, along the way, it isn't just creating a power plant type of empire either. You are creating multiple different types of buildings that you will then use your workers or energy to activate, and then will all kind of work in synergy together to create desired effects on each one of your turns. So let me show you how to play the game. It should take a little bit of time, but it is pretty straightforward. It's just this game has a lot of depth to it once you learn how to play the game, and it has this kind of wonderful, fantastic two-pronged turn action thing going on. But I'll explain that more when I show you how to play the game, and then we'll come back here and I'll tell you more about why I am super excited about this one. All right, cool. Alright, this is the Manhattan Project Energy Empire. I'm going to show you how to play. Keep in mind, this is a prototype I was sent, so this may or may not look like the final result as far as when the game is published. Alright, to begin the game, each person will be given 2 of these cards that will represent which nation they control. So let's just say that I got these 2, and you get to pick 2 and you get to choose one of them. So each of these, it gives you your starting resources. This would be 3 oil and a research, and 2 money, whereas the Union Jack here would get 2 oil, 2 steel, and 2 money. Also, on the bottom, this is important because it tells what resources are needed for that nation to move up on the United Nations track. And each time that you're able to turn in these resources, so in this case it would be an oil, 2 money, you'd go up 1 spot on the track. And then in this case with Great Britain, it is 2 money and a steel. And you go up on this track, and the higher up you get on that track, before the end of the game, you're going to get more victory points, starting with 4 here and all the way up to 17 there at the top. So in honor of my friend Michael Fox of the Little Metal Dog Show, I'm going to pick Great Britain. And the cool thing with this is that you kind of put it here because this is where you're going to be putting your other buildings that you'll be taking, like there's these buildings over here. You also then can have the other one. You don't have to give it back. It has the reference material right there on the other side, so you can just kind of put that right there and keep, so you have that to kind of tell you what you're doing as far as on your turn, or what you're going to be processing. You also are going to get 2 of these achievement tokens at the very beginning. These are extra victory points at the end of the game. This little star there is the extra victory points. And so what happens is that you pick one of these, and at the end of the game, however many healthy forests you have will give you a victory point. And then for every industrial building you have will give you a victory point, things like that. And so this first one is secret, and so you just pick one. So I'm not going to take healthy forest. I'm going to, maybe in this game, I'm just going to have pollution and don't care. And so I'm going to put that one there, and just maybe I can make an industrial powerhouse. And then you take that other one, you put it back in the supply, and everybody's going to do that and pick one. You get a possibility of 5 of those, it says right there on your player board, and you get more of them over here as you play the game. You'll be able to claim those and then add those, and so you have extra bonus points towards the end of the game. Kind of a neat thing as far as your strategy as it develops. So On your turn, this is a worker placement game, but the turn is interesting because it's just like before, like if you've played Manhattan Project, it kind of has that same feel where you will be doing either a work turn in this case or a generate turn. A work turn is taking your workers, taking your energy, and placing them on the board in one of the many spots that you can do different actions to claim like cards or claim resources or things like that, until basically you either decide that you don't want to do any more of those actions, or you don't have any more workers or energy that allow you to use any of those actions, and then you're going to do a generate energy turn. So working is very, very simple. You're just going to take one of your workers and you're going to say, I'm going to go work here in the mine, and then you can see that you would collect a iron for that, or a steel technically, and you just place that in your spot. Now the interesting thing is that unlike a lot of worker placement games where it's like I'm there and I'm in that spot, now you can't use it, other players can use the spot. But so like if yellow wanted to go ahead and take their worker and place it in that location, they could, if they are able to stack an energy token underneath their worker like so, and then place it there. So then they have a higher stack than the other players there. Now the interesting thing is that you can at any time, you can add more energy there to prevent somebody else from using it. So if yellow was feeling like a jerk, they could go, I'm going to put all 3 of these energy underneath there, and I'm going to put them there. So then now there's this giant stack there and nobody can use that. Of course, like if somebody really wanted to, like if green said, well, I really need steel. I don't know why anybody would do this, but just for the sake of an argument, they could go ahead and make a larger stack and then place that on that location to use it. And then, of course, they're going to fall over in this case. But that is how the placement of workers works. So quickly just kind of going through the different things of what you can do. You can go there and grab steel. If you go and place a worker on oil drilling, you will get 3 cubes of oil, which is obviously good. The oil can be used to refine, and when you refine oil, you'll get more energy cubes that you'll be able to roll during your generate energy turn, but I'll get to that in just a little brief moment. But when you do an oil drilling, you have to take one of these tokens. And on these tokens, you can see there is an oil drill there. And on the other side, you can see there is like a blue like sea drilling operation. Now on your player board, you're going to see you have this kind of like, this is your environment of your nation. And what you have is that each one of these has a little star in it. You can probably guess that's a victory point, but I'll get to how that gets scored here in just a brief moment. And when you place something on one of these spots, what you'll be doing is you will, be placing it and taking over that spot where now that spot isn't going to be worth a victory point. And you'll notice that there's these 4 spots right here, I'll lift that up, that have that oil token on it. So you can't just keep, drilling the whole thing, but you can place either a land or a sea like so, and then you can then take those 3 oil cubes by using that oil drilling location. And that's how that works. And that's kind of like pollution, just like you start with this 1 pollution token up here in your sky. That's also pollution as well because, like I said, you're using up that spot. In the chemistry location, when you use that, you'll be turning in 1 oil cube for getting 2 plastic, research, which is these blue things right here, and also you'll notice you get a pollution. Now the thing is, whenever you gather pollution, unless the reason why you gather it tells you a specific spot that gets polluted, you get to pick any of the spots on your player board to do so. If you had filled up every single spot on your board, you actually do have spillover, in which case then your pollution will go to another person's player board. Usually and that's going to be the person that has the least pollution. You're just going to be giving that. If 2 people are tied, you get to pick who gets it. So you can kind of mess with people a little bit that way. If you have a situation where like you have to pollute the forest and you've polluted all of your forest, you have to pick somebody else's forest who is the least polluted forest, and you'll be giving them the token in that case. So that's how the spillover, if you happen to have filled up your player board with pollution. That's not a good thing. You don't want to, but it is kind of neat that you get to pollute somebody else's board if that happens. All right. So moving into the commerce section, you have the finance, which allows you to first you can take Like you can see there's different money. You can take 2 money, or if you take 3 money, you have to give everybody else 1. If you take 4 money, you get to give everybody else 2. You can buy or sell oil at the price. Now you can notice up here there's these prices, like oil is 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. As whenever you generate energy, you'll be taking one of these tokens off that location. Now, this is a 5-player game, so we have 7 tokens in each one of those locations. That decreases with every player with less players. But you have a situation there where you're retaking those tokens, and usually, unless you roll lucky or you're a very green nation with your energy, you'll be placing those pollution tokens on your board. So, but as this goes up, right now oil's cheap, but as you progress through the game, oil's going to become more and more expensive, and like it's going to be better to sell it, obviously, because you're going to be able to gain money from doing so. This final one is a trade, and this is just kind of like an infinity type of situation. You can trade 2 money for a plastic or a steel cube, or you can trade a plastic or a steel cube for a research. You can kind of bounce back and forth by using that location. Pretty straightforward. Over here with scientific research, you can use 1 science to be able to look at one of these global impact cards. I'll explain that in just a little bit. Over here with education, you can spend 3 money and you can get a worker, but when you do that, you actually gain pollution when you get a worker. And finally, over here, you can use a science token to do restoration. You can see there's those recycle things. When you recycle, you can basically remove pollution from your board. If you have a spot of pollution, you can just take that off the board. If you have nuclear radiation, which is the other side, you then flip the nuclear radiation over, and then eventually you could then remove it as well, obviously, because it would be normal pollution then at that point. Obviously, nuclear radiation is tougher to get rid of. This final spot down here is the different power plants. This is very important because you're going to be claiming these dice for energy dice, and then being able to roll those during your generate phase to generate energy. And depending upon what type of energy you want, you have to then take the different dice. So if you're willing to spend a steel, you can get a coal. If you spend steel and a research, you can get nuclear. And then plastic and research, you get solar or wind, power. Now this blue one is special because it is hydroelectric. Now normally you can take as many of these dice as you want, and the dice are a finite resource. Once they're gone, they're gone. So it does become kind of a race to get there. And you'll notice there is only space for 1 worker there. It's kind of neat. But anyway, so the blue one is hydroelectric, and it's good because of the fact that it generates a lot of power, but you can only have 1 of these dice. So, and the moment that you take it, you do have to take a pollution, and it has to go into one of your forests. It's just to generate the fact that you're going into the wild and you're setting up a dam, basically. Probably tearing down trees and creating roads and what have you to create like some giant dam along some river. But hydroelectric power is good because it generates an equitable amount of power, more than solar or wind, but it is always going to be clean. So it's always kind of in your best interest to kind of generate one of those if you can. So those are the different locations. I did, except for these are claiming these different buildings that are located. The buildings are generated, are pulled off of these different decks, and then as these are claimed, you then remove it and slide everything and then put it out there. So if you took this one, you take this and you move it over like so, and you go like that. So, just as you probably, if you play games with the sliding cards mechanism, you understand how that works. Up here, you can actually see where, and I apologize, it actually slides the other way. I did that backwards. But, so like this spot, it is like 2 money or a steel to claim this. 3 money or a steel to claim this. 4 money or 2 steel to claim that. And so like if you get something that nobody wants, it's going to slowly but surely move and slide over, to that direction. And then, it'll become cheaper and people will want it. For commerce, it is 2 money and, it's money and plastic. And finally, as you can probably guess, for government, it is money and science or research to claim those. When you claim a spot to, like, you want, like you put a worker, as always, you place a worker like so, and then you just take it, you pay the resources, you take it, and you put it in your tableau like so. And then you would then, once again, like I said, you'd slide these over and go ahead and place those in there. Now, I'm just going to put 1 of each in my tableau, just kind of show you how this works. So you have these different locations, and you'll notice that on the bottom of these different cards, you're going to see that there is like these little workers with these lightning bolts in it. That means that you can either use workers or lightning to activate those locations. Now, some of these locations have 2 workers on them. That means you need 2 workers or 2 energy. You can combine whatever you want. 1 worker, 1 energy, 2 workers. Any of those will work. Some of these, like the bank, have like 2 spots basically. So this can be used twice, not on the same turn, but you could use one then use the other the next turn. So you could use the bank twice because there's that line there. Just keep that in mind. Now, the interesting thing is that you are able to place workers on these during your work phase, but only if you first have already used, during this turn, before you generate, you've placed a worker on one of these locations that corroborates with the type of building. So by placing a worker down here, you now can activate your government locations because of that. Same thing for commerce, for your yellow, and finally here for your industry. And then you can place other workers then, like I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to activate my energy company industry by doing so. You might have noticed in the top left of each one of these cards there is a star that gives victory points. So as you build these buildings, they are all going to be worth like victory points for you towards the end of the game. And so, that's that. Now, so each person just takes their turn, and this isn't a situation where like everybody like goes through and uses up all their workers and then everybody generates when they generate their power. You get to pick when you generate. It's dependent totally upon when you think it is the right time for you to do so. When you decide to generate, you get to claim an achievement, which and you can. But you notice you probably can't see this, but it says you claim generate turn that you have either like you have to have a worker or an energy or like 2 workers. It's basically 2. There's 2 of these little figures that say worker energy on there, so you can, same thing as up here. 2 energy, 2 workers, an energy and worker, you get to claim an achievement. You can claim 1 achievement. Now, this is because you do this because maybe you don't have any options left over because you don't want to do anything, and you still have workers and or energy that you haven't used up. It is important to note that when you generate, you hand back all of your energy, unused energy, and and to the supply, or basically back, take it back off your tableau that you haven't used and put it down below, and then you'll roll to generate energy on this turn to create it. So if you have energy, it's, and you have space to take an achievement, it's always a good idea, maybe to take one that you can use. You return any workers that you have out here. You return them back to your board, and you discard their energy, like I said. And then, if you want to, you can refine an oil cube that you may have collected for 1 brown dye. Now, that's because at the towards the beginning of the game, you're not going to have a lot of these dice. You haven't created them. You don't have a good energy dice. You don't have to refine oil if you don't want to, but you can. Then you will roll your energy dice. So let's just say, for example, like we had like 1 of each. Let's just just so we can kind of show how this works. So let's say you had like all these. Now you could have like multiples of these. Obviously, you can have multiples of the blue. Oh, and I should mention that you can at maximum burn up or refine 4 oil and get 4 of these dice. That's the maximum. So you would then roll these dice, and you would then determine how much energy you create, but also this is going to determine how much pollution you create as well. So I'm just going to roll these really quick. And so, not the best roll in the world, but this is kind of, and I should mention that these are kind of like the prototype dice that they sent. No, you could use obviously ones with just straight pips, and there is like a little board within the rules that you can actually just use to notice. But in this case, these actually have the different amounts of energy each roll creates, and also the possibility of the pollution that they'll create when you roll them. So now you just total up the amount of energy that you created. So you count the lightning bolts. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So with that roll, you would create 8 energy. Now you have to look and see which dice you rolled the highest on, and both of these I rolled a 5. Now of these dice, this is my my coal plant and my nuclear plant. You'll notice that there is on the bottom of that die, there is a little nuclear energy symbol there. And then the bottom of this one, there is a little cloud pollution there. Now, I got lucky because I rolled the highest on 2 of these. If I had rolled like a 3 on this, I would have to take the highest die on there, because whatever the highest die is, you have to accept the pollution that's on that die. So if you rolled that 5, I'd have to take, I'd have to put a nuclear pollution on my board. But in this case, I'd be in a situation where I would, like, where's the 5? I can't find it now. So since I rolled a 5 with it, I would then, I just lost it. There you go. So if I have a 5, then I'm going to take one of these pollutions, and then I get to place it on my tableau wherever I decide to place it. So I could place it like over there if I wanted to, something like that. If I had gotten lucky and I had rolled a 6 on my hydroelectric, or if I'd rolled like a 5 on my solar or wind power, I would still gain all the energy I gain, but I would be able to choose one of these dice as my top die, and I would get no pollution whatsoever. Now, I still take a pollution counter off of that stack to show that I've generated power, but I don't have to place one on my player board. Now, so, which brings us kind of full circle, and that's how you generate. And then now you are going to have a situation where once these stacks of pollution are gone, and you can probably see there's cards above there, this is when the global impacts occur. And so, like, you just turn the global impact and you see what happens. So, you see here it says oil boom. It has an action. Each player may drill for oil as if they were using the oil drilling location. So, it will replicate this particular location if they choose to do so. So they'd gain an oil rig and gain 3 oil. But also, you can see up here, you're going to score the forests. So every player, however many forests they have that are still pollution free, they gain points for those. And then over here it says that means you're going to be recycling the commerce row. So when you turn that over, what you'll do is you'll score those points. People will take that action if they want to, and then you will reset the commerce roll by taking those 3 off and putting 3 brand new cards in that row. And then you do the same thing when these are gone for this, that, and so on and so forth. Now, these are kind of like, they're kind of nice, if you will, but the late ones aren't so good. So, like, here you have a market crash where until another global impact is triggered, players must pay 1 extra to buy any structure. And you get a ton of these. You only use 6 of them, but you get a ton of both of the types of cards that you won't be using, and so you don't know exactly what bad stuff is going to happen to you. So you can't, like, just say, oh, the stock market crash hasn't happened yet, so I'm planning for that. So it is kind of neat that they kind of divvy those up or whatever. So you continue on playing the game until you've used up all of the pollution tokens. Once somebody has triggered the end turn, everybody gets 1 more turn, including the person that triggered the end game. After that is done, everybody's going to be totaling up all of their victory points from everything that they have. The structures are worth points. Energy dice for each die that you have, you get 2 victory points. You get the victory points from how far up you've gone up the United Nations. The interesting thing is that there can only be 1 person at the top level of the United Nations spot, but everybody else can share. Everybody else could be on the spot number 4 if they could get up there, but you would use the top spot. Only 1 person can be there, and plus whoever's the leader gets a bonus of 3 victory points. Every achievement that you satisfy, you can total a score of maximum 5 victory points for every achievement that you've taken that you have, and then you score 1 victory point for each unpolluted space. And if you manage to keep these columns free, these last 3 columns, you get a bonus of victory points as well for doing that. So total up the victory points. Whoever obviously scores the most will then be the best nation at creating their energy and will be the energy empire. So there you go. I love this game. I absolutely love it. It is everything that I wanted, that I want from a worker placement game. Tough decisions, lots of different variable player effects, I should say, like, lots of different variable building effects, dice, competing for spaces, tough choices. I could go on, and I will in my conclusion, which I'll do right now. All right, so yeah, there you go. So that is how you play the Energy Empire game from the Manhattan Project people. So I've already kind of gushed a lot about why I really like this game, but I mean, just for me, it just has everything that I want from a worker placement game. And I think I might actually, when this game gets published, and well, I mean, technically right now, I mean, obviously there's the whole Cult of the New thing, but like, I'm sad because I am sending this back to Minion Games. I'm sending this back to James because of the fact that they're going to be using it to demo the game and what have you, and I won't be able to play this anymore. So I'm kind of brokenhearted over that, because I've played this now, close to maybe 10 times with my buddies, and we've just taken to this game and just absolutely love it. It's just the whole process of the turn. I mentioned that whole two-pronged turn thing. It's like, do I work or do I generate? And the thing is that there's, a lot of people will just say, well, you should probably just use up all your workers before you actually go ahead and process that turn. But there's always going to be something where you might have a reason to speed the turns up a little bit, generate, get your generation going, and then get these tokens taken off. Now I think I should have mentioned, you can't generate like I'm gonna generate to kind of push the whole the game forward. You aren't allowed to do that, but you can just take a smaller amount of actions, and you can go through generate process if you're trying to just kind of maybe push the game forward a little bit to get to the game to a different stage where, maybe that's your plan or maybe that's your strategy. And I've had people that I played with, try that strategy to good effect, actually. It's one of those things where it's like each time you play it, it's a little bit different, depending on, which ones of, the different cards for the different buildings come out, which cards, you're able to snag before somebody else grabs. I mean, the whole process of actually being able to place, workers and energy and stacks to use those different locations is a fantastic mechanism. It's one of those things where it's like, I'm going to be putting this and I'm going to put more energy underneath my guy just because I want to hammer everybody into not being able to use this spot. And so you can create kind of an artificial shortage of different resources by going through that process. You can get strangleholds over certain types of things if other people can't get different other buildings that will generate resources for them. And you can obviously there's workarounds. You can do trades and things like that, not trades with other players, but using the trading spot on the board and things like that. But this is a worker placement game with some teeth. There's so many worker placement games that are garden games, and I've mentioned this many times where everybody just kind of builds their own garden, and those are fine games, But I like being able to, and I've said this 1,000 times, and I apologize for repeating myself. I like being able to go and stomp on your garden. And throw snails over the fence and salt your earth and what have you. I like being able to mess with people, and this is a game. This is a worker placement game that actually has conflict and teeth. And actually, I'm not just playing the game and trying to create my little victory point engine here. I have to contend with other players in the team, other players in the game that are going to be working against me from taking those situations. But it's one thing to just have a spot where it's like, oh, I put my worker in that spot, and now you can't use it until I withdraw my people. But I do like the fact that they have added that mechanism where it's like, oh, well, you can, but it's going to cost you. And that is along with all the normal decisions you have to make, never having enough workers or energy to do the things you want. I love that element of any game where it's like, I can't do everything I want. So you got to decide which of the 5 things you want to do is what you want to do. It's like that I appreciate the fact that they put in the ability to use a spot, but is it worth the cost? And so that's kind of the process of your turn. Now, one thing that the old Manhattan Project, and I think that is a good change in this one. Not that I don't mind this in Manhattan Project before, but there was the espionage ability that in Manhattan Project that allowed you to use other people's spots on their player board. Then so you could you send your spies in to use their abilities. You don't have this in this game, which is fine because I think it adds a really awesome part where it's like, oh, you know, I really got this really cool, I got the uranium mine, you know, it's like, cool, you know, if I want to, I can create a steel and a research every single turn, and this is mine. I got this in like the very beginning of the game, and I get to use that constantly, and I don't have to worry about somebody else coming and like messing with that. And, you know, it's one of those things where it kind of prompts you to want to be able to, you know, kind of have a good balance, if you will, with your buildings. But the tough thing is that once again, you have to, in order to use your buildings, you have to use the spots on the board. And so, you know, it's just, it seems like you've always got like 4 or 5 or 6 balls juggling in the air, and because it's me, I'm always dropping them and picking them up, because I never can figure out exactly how to put that puzzle together to have a successful game. Now, this does give me those little aha moments of like where I feel like I'm really smart when I get a couple of good turns joined together, but those aha moments are like kind of few and far between for me, which, you know, either is because it's me or because the game is just difficult. And I don't mind the game being difficult and making me work for me to be successful when I play it. And so then that's what brings me back to the table and brings me back to a game. I've always said, like, there are certain games that are excellent games, that are wonderful games, that I really, really enjoyed. But after you've played them 6 or 7 times, you've kind of like, I've seen everything this game can give me. I've seen everything that this game can present to me. I'm kind of I've said this before, and I'm an exploratory gamer. I enjoy discovering a game. Now, once I've kind of learned the game, I don't enjoy it as much. I mean, it feels like you're just kind of going through the motions. And that's fine if you want to play a game in a social situation where you're just going to play it and it isn't the focus of the reason why you're there. But I like games where the focus is the game, and I want to constantly be trying to improve my abilities with said game. And because of the difficulty, because of the variability, because of all the different things that are going on in the game and the conflict and everything, Manhattan Project Energy Empire is going to not move out of that exploratory phase for me for a long, long time, and I appreciate that about it. So there you go. There you go. That is the Manhattan Project Energy Empire. If you have any questions about it, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, I am the Undead Viking, and this was the game, and I hope you have an awesome day today. All right, bye-bye.